At 19, Marcus coaxed me into tasting the forbidden fruit. 6 years later, he did the same thing as he did back then. He placed a young, delicate intern on his lap. Everyone thought that even if I caught him with another woman, I wouldn't dare to say the words break up. But this time I suddenly got tired of it. On a night when the rain was pouring, I dragged my suitcase and left. After a long while, Marcus casually called, "The rain is too heavy, you can leave tomorrow instead." I didn't respond. The phone, which was pressed to my ear, was suddenly taken away. I instinctively turned around, only to be pressed tightly against the floor-to-ceiling window by him. When the call ended, Robin whispered in my ear, "Setla, it's raining so hard. Why don't you stay at my place tonight?" When I opened the door, Marcus had a young woman sitting on his lap. She wore a beige silk blouse and a black pencil skirt. The typical outfit for a secretary intern. She looked somewhat mature and intellectual, but the way she dressed made her seem naive. When she saw me, she immediately turned bright red. She tried to get off Marcus' lap, but he simply lifted his eyelids and glanced at me. His arms tightened around her. "Don't be afraid, I'm here." With that charming, roguish face. His voice was soothing and gentle. In a daze, I suddenly thought back to when I was 19. He had also coaxed me like this. He coaxed me into kissing him, into hugging him. He coaxed me into going with him to a hotel. He coaxed me, telling me not to be afraid and to trust him completely. And now, the same words, the same gentleness, were used on a younger girl. I suddenly laughed. Marcus smelled of alcohol, and there was a hazy, drunken look in his eyes. "Setla, why are you laughing?" I slowly suppressed my smile and spoke softly, "Marcus, let's break up." Without waiting for him to speak, and without paying attention to the sudden silence in the room, I gently took off the plain ring that had been on my finger for 5 years, and placed it on the coffee table in front of Marcus. I turned and walked out. Marcus didn't say a word to stop me. Nor did he get up to chase me. We had been together for 5 years, and he had become a hotshot young entrepreneur, while I was just a minor TV host with little recognition. So, even if I caught him with another woman, no one would believe I would actually break up with him. When I closed the door, I heard voices behind me. "Setla is just embarrassed to back down. You should go home and coax her tonight." "No need." Marcus laughed softly, "You guys should ask her, does she dare to break up? All these years, I gave her a place to stand. I gave her a home." Marcus was calm and composed, looking down from above, "She doesn't dare, and she won't want to." I gripped the doorknob, standing still, straightening my back, but the tears suddenly poured down. When I was young, he promised me a home. And that's why I, alone and helpless, was moved and fell for him. But now, the promises from years ago had become a dagger stabbing at my heart. Indeed, the closest people know best how to hurt you deeply. It took me 3 days to pack my things at home. During those 3 days, many mutual friends tried to subtly ask me questions. But I didn't reply. I just calmly packed up everything I owned. On the last night before I left, I carefully checked the entire house, making sure not even a single hair was left behind, before I called a cab. After the moving truck took all my things, the rain suddenly poured down. Thunderstorms were the weather I feared most. When I was a child, my parents passed away on a night like this. And back then, every stormy night, Marcus would stay by my side. I used to depend on him so much. But now, I didn't need him anymore. The taxi drove into the heavy rain, and I stared at the waterfall-like streams on the car window, lost in thought. Suddenly, the car lost control and came to a screeching halt. The car behind didn't have time to avoid it and collided. Luckily, the impact wasn't severe. I turned around, still shaken, and saw a Rolls-Royce behind us, standing still like a ship on the sea, its double plates glistening in the rain. Before the taxi driver could curse, he quickly bit his tongue. A man in a black suit stepped out of the car, holding an umbrella. The expensive leather shoes splashed in the rain as he walked over to my car. The umbrella shielded him from the downpour, but his cold, handsome face was still visible. I was stunned, blinking in disbelief. "Mr. Robin?" Robin looked at me with an unreadable expression, amusement slowly creeping into his eyes. What a coincidence. The car drove into Robin's private garage. Before the driver even got out, Robin reached up and grabbed my chin, kissing me directly. I was so startled I tried to push him away, but he grabbed my wrist. His voice was icy. Did you ever think about this moment when you set me up before? My wrist was being squeezed painfully. But I had no words to defend myself. I could only murmur an apology. Sorry, Robin. Whether I knew about it or not. Whether it was my intention or not. Robin had been schemed against, and his reputation had been damaged. That was a fact. Don't try to brush me off with that phrase. Setla, last time I didn't touch you, yet I was labeled as forcing a woman. How about we make that accusation true today? Robin wiped away the moisture at the corner of my lips. I was pale, staring at him in shock. Sir. Don't try to make me feel soft. He slowly slid the strap of my dress down. You should know, I'm as hard on the inside as I am on the outside. I closed my eyes in despair. I thought about the scandal that had lasted for half a month. Though the matter was suppressed, and no one dared to mention it again. It had caused Robin to lose an important project. A project that ended up in Marcus's hands. So, even though it had been a coincidence, a misunderstanding, Robin would never believe that. A man like him could never accept swallowing this humiliation. Can we not do this here? I weakly tugged at his sleeve, trembling as I begged, please, Robin. Robin smiled faintly. These words are better saved for the bed. In fact, for the past year, Marcus and I had barely shared a bed. I had almost forgotten what passion felt like. Even before Robin and I could fully connect. I was already in pain, hitting him and biting his arm. Could you please leave? My whole body was shaking, sweat pouring down my forehead. But Robin didn't look much better. His face was tense, and his Adam's apple moved violently as his voice turned hoarse. It seems your man isn't up to the task, Setla. Can you stop talking about him? I lowered my eyes. Marcus and I have broken up, we have nothing to do with each other. Robin suddenly looked at me intently. And in the next moment, he, who had been so unyielding, pulled back, retreating from me. I let out a breath of relief, instinctively loosening my grip on his arm. But immediately after, Robin tightened his hold on my waist. His rigid, volcanic body collided with my molten skin. My fingertips dug into his flesh as my voice shattered under the impact. Outside, the rain kept pouring. The noise drowned out the sounds within the room. By dawn, the rain still hadn't stopped. Robin carried my soaked body to the floor-to-ceiling window. Suddenly, my phone rang again, endlessly. It was Marcus calling. I trembled as I answered. Did you move out? His voice was emotionless. My fingers pressed against the cold glass, my voice hoarse, yes. When? Tonight. The rain is too heavy, you can leave tomorrow instead. His voice sounded so indifferent. How laughable. I hadn't spoken yet when the phone pressed against my ear was suddenly snatched away. I instinctively turned around, but Robin had already wrapped his arms around me, pinning me against the floor-to-ceiling window. He glanced at the lit-up screen of my phone, then pressed it to my ear, cutting the call. The rain's so heavy, Setla. Why don't you stay at my place tonight? I shook my head, my wet hair sticking to my back. The stark contrast between black and white was a jarring visual assault. Robin lowered his head, kissing my neck. One more time. I didn't refuse, only asking softly, aren't we square now? The emotion in Robin's eyes suddenly turned cold. He smiled, his fingers curling into my long hair. You want to call it even? Fine, we can. My drenched hair wound around his long fingers in tight coils. He pulled gently, urging me to press closer to him. His other hand grasped my chin, lifting my face. The night was thick with darkness, but his eyes were even deeper. Then let me cement that accusation, Setla. That's how we'll call it even. A shiver ran through my scalp. In fact, Robin wasn't using much force. Actually, the 2 times before tonight, I could feel he was holding back. If he hadn't, I probably would have been torn apart already. After all, there was such a huge physical difference between us. If he'd really meant to hurt me, to prove that accusation true. The one who'd suffer would have been me. Maybe it was because tonight we'd done the most intimate thing between a man and a woman. Once a man and a woman cross that line, many things subtly change without them even realizing it. Strangely, I didn't feel too frightened. I just looked up at him, even managing a smile. Robin, then go ahead and prove the accusation. But there's one thing. I stood on my tiptoes, leaning in to kiss the corner of his lips. I don't want to get hurt. After all, my job requires me to be on camera. It was probably the first time I'd actively tried to please him. As he lowered his eyes to meet my kiss, his voice grew deeper. Setla, you have a second choice. What choice? Take the initiative, make me feel good, and maybe I'll let you off the hook. I widened my eyes instantly. Robin was different from Marcus. His reputation had never been great. The way he rose to power was said to be less than clean. But in recent years, as his business empire expanded, he'd gradually shed his rough edge. I still remember last year when he was interviewed by a financial magazine. He was composed, calm, and poised. Some journalists even flattered him, calling him the most gentlemanly businessman. Because of that, many people had nearly forgotten that Robin wasn't the heir of a noble family nurtured for decades. He had once been scraping by on the streets more than 10 years ago. Deep down, he didn't have much of a gentleman's bone in him. What's wrong? Robin's lips curved into a grin. Are you scared? I shook my head, but couldn't help but bite my lip. No, it's just I don't know how to. Robin's smile faded. After all these years of dating, didn't he teach you? I hadn't even opened my mouth when Robin spoke again. Wasn't that night you quite skilled? My face turned bright red. At the time, I had only thought I was just drunk, that's why I acted out. But later, I slowly realized that my drink must have been spiked with something. Otherwise, even if I were drunk, I wouldn't have clung to a man and tried to undress him like that. I think my drink must have been spiked, that's why Robin looked down at me, no trace of a smile on his face. Didn't you ask Marcus what he slipped in your drink? I was a bit stunned. Mr. Robin, that was just an accident. But as soon as I said it, I couldn't help but feel some doubt creeping in. When Marcus took that project from me, I had wondered if he had set me up. But at the time, Marcus and I weren't yet estranged. People always tend to defend those they care for deep inside. Now, though, Marcus and I had completely broken up. So some thoughts started to change. But then Robin suddenly let go of me. His gaze toward me was distant, filled with indifference. I'm going to take a shower. With that, he turned and walked into the bathroom. When Robin came out of the bathroom, I was still standing by the window. The rain had fallen all night long. The entire city was swallowed up by the mist and fog. Everything outside was indistinguishable. I stood there, lost in thought. Robin came up behind me, wrapping his arms around me. His body was still damp with cold water vapor, and I couldn't help but shiver. What are you thinking about? Thinking about what we just talked about. Robin scoffed, you might as well think about how you're going to make me let you off the hook. Robin, I don't feel like it. But before I could finish my sentence, he lowered his head and kissed me forcefully. Setla, thinking about other men in front of me? Do you think I've been too kind to you the last 2 times? His kiss grew more intense, but the frost in his gaze didn't thaw. Suddenly, I felt scared. At this moment, Robin felt like a completely different person. In his eyes, I could clearly feel that this time, he wouldn't show any mercy. Robin. Desperation made me set aside all my pride. They say Robin was ruthless and reckless when he was younger, which is why a mob boss took notice of him. That's how he skyrocketed to the top. A person like him wouldn't value human life much. As I responded to his kiss, I wrapped my arms around his neck. You said I should take the initiative. I won't, but I'll learn. Will you teach me? I'll learn properly. When the kiss finally ended, Robin chuckled softly. All right. As I straddled his muscular waist, my face was so flushed I could hardly bear to look at it. But Robin raised his hand and swept my long hair, which had fallen in front of my chest, behind my back. I bit my lip, trying to cover my chest with my arms. But he grabbed my wrist tightly. Robin. I stared at him, tears welling up in my eyes. But he wasn't moved in the slightest. Setla. Robin's voice was cold, detached. You've already done it, no need to act all shy now. Also, it's pouring outside, you can scream a little louder if you want. I shook my head, tears brimming in my eyes. I can't. Robin, please. Don't make me force you, I really can't. I lowered my head, tears falling one by one onto his chest. I was afraid he'd get angry, struggling to pull my hand away to wipe them off. But he just tightened his grip. Robin didn't say anything. He simply watched the woman straddling him, silently crying. She wasn't exceptionally beautiful. Her body was a bit too thin. Her personality wasn't particularly likable. She cried so easily, always getting teary-eyed. Every time he said something remotely sharp, she looked like she'd been horribly shocked. As if he could kill her at any moment. And she had just broken up with a 6-year boyfriend. Robin furrowed his brows. He hadn't planned to get involved with a woman like her. But absurdly, after that night, he found himself thinking about it more and more often. He thought about the way she had climbed on top of him, undressing him. About the way he'd held her wrist, stopping her from misbehaving. How her eyes had filled with tears, feeling wronged. If it was lust, there were many women who had tried to throw themselves at him over the years. And he'd seen his share of women who stripped and glued themselves to him. But he had never reacted this way before. In fact, later on, he often regretted it. That night, why didn't he just let things unfold naturally and firmly pin the blame on himself? As a result, he felt like he had become a complete freak. He had people monitoring Setla and Marcus 24/7. The moment she moved out of Marcus's house, he had trailed her like a stalker, following her car. When he took Setla away, he blamed it all on his thirst for revenge. But even though he wanted to get back at her, he couldn't help but care about her feelings and experiences. Even during those 2 previous times, he had been holding back, trying to restrain himself. He never fully let go. And still, Setla acted like she had been terribly wronged. Just moments ago, she was trying to excuse someone like Marcus, that scumbag. At that moment, he really wanted to throw her out into the pouring rain, to make her snap out of it. But in the end, he had gone to the bathroom and taken a cold shower. Robin had little respect for himself in that moment. Since he was a kid, he always believed that a man should never be controlled by a woman. This time, he definitely wouldn't soften. Yet, when Setla lowered her head and cried, his heart softened again because of her tears. Robin raised his hand. His rough fingertips gently brushing against Setla's full lips. She was small and delicate. But her cherry-colored lips were full, with a slight sensuality to them. The feeling of kissing her was incredible. It seemed like he liked kissing her more than being intimate with her. He even preferred making her cry, making her feel dirty. "Why are you crying?" Robin pinched my chin, forcing me to look up, but the tears kept falling. "I only said a few things, and you still haven't done anything." Robin wiped away the tears at the corner of my eye. "If someone didn't know better, they'd think I actually forced you." "I'm sorry." I stared at him, my tears relentless. "Enough." Robin suddenly sat up straight and gently lifted me off him. He grabbed a thin blanket and wrapped it around me. "If you stop crying now, we'll just sleep." I stared at him, wide-eyed, still with tears streaming down my face. Frozen in place. Robin raised the corner of his lips. "What's wrong? Don't want to sleep?" I shook my head vigorously, then quickly closed my eyes. Robin lifted the blanket and lay down beside me. I instinctively curled up, trying to keep my distance from him. But Robin pulled me into his arms. "Setla. Sleep well and don't move around. If you stir things up, you'll be the one to deal with it." "Got it." I lay still, afraid to move. It wasn't until Robin's breathing steadied that I hesitantly moved, trying to ease the stiffness in my body. But just as I was about to slide out of his arms, Robin flipped over and pinned me beneath him. "Setla. I told you not to tempt me." "I didn't." "I say you did." In the darkness, Robin leaned down and kissed me. It seemed like he especially loved kissing. This kiss was deeper, lingering. By the time it ended, I suddenly realized how deeply I had already become connected with Robin. And this time, the sensation was clearly different from the previous ones. I clutched his arm in fear. Robin. It felt too deep, and I trembled uncontrollably all over. Robin's strong arms were braced on either side of me. He leaned in, his breath brushing my ear. Has he been here? My mind exploded in shock. Tears poured from my eyes, but I couldn't tell whether it was from pleasure or from the fear of experiencing something new. Yet the fingers gripping his arm felt soft and powerless. I felt like an island being washed away by a torrential downpour, about to be torn apart by the overwhelming force. The sound of the rain was deafening. In the dim room, Robin suddenly grabbed my hand and pressed it against his abdomen. The top muscles were covered in water droplets. Setla. His voice was hoarse and low, but there was a hint of satisfaction. Look, you're more powerful than the rain outside. I felt dizzy, like a small boat on a stormy sea, drifting aimlessly. I couldn't understand his words. I only felt like my little boat was about to be shattered by the waves. This heavy rain didn't even soak me. But you've drenched me all over. Setla, what do you think should be your compensation? When I woke up again, the rain had stopped. Robin wasn't in the room. I went to the bathroom and soaked in the tub for a long time. But my mind was still a mess. After coming out of the bathroom, I turned on my phone and plugged it in. Countless messages and missed calls flooded in. A few were from Marcus. I didn't call him back, just deleted his contact information. I had taken some time off, so I didn't have to go to the station for work. The moving company had already delivered my things to my new apartment. It was less than 20 square meters, with a rent of nearly $20,000 a month. For me, it was a huge expense. Thankfully, Marcus had been generous to me over the years. And I had saved some money, so I didn't have to worry about daily expenses. The only trouble now was Robin. But when I went downstairs, I didn't see him at all. I had a meal in the dining room, and when I cautiously mentioned wanting to leave, the servants didn't stop me. Instead, they sent a driver to courteously take me back to my apartment. I thought about it the whole way, and concluded that the tension between Robin and me had likely been resolved. This realization made me breathe a sigh of relief. It was a good thing. After all, a man like Robin was really hard to please. But after just one night, I felt completely drained, like I'd been emptied out. If we kept doing this every night, my life might be in danger. The new apartment was small, and I didn't have many things. It only took half a day to settle everything. The one-bedroom apartment was enough for me to live in by myself, although it didn't compare to Marcus's spacious mansion. Lying in my own little bed now felt reassuring. The afternoon sunlight was warm, and I didn't know when I fell asleep. In my dream, I went back to when I was 19. Marcus was coaxing me, and we snuck into a hotel room and tasted forbidden fruit. Afterward, I cried non-stop. Not just because of the pain, but because I was scared. He held me tightly, slipping a simple ring onto my finger. After you graduate, we'll get married. Tears fell in my dream. But I knew deep down those tears weren't for Marcus. They were for the naive, foolish Setla at 19. For that lonely Setla who longed for a home. After deleting Marcus's contact, he never reached out again. I had distanced myself from his circle, so I rarely heard anything about him anymore. When the holiday ended, I returned to work at the station. But then I suddenly heard some surprising news. Tiffany, another female host who never got along with me, had managed to get Marcus on her show. The whole station was in an uproar. After all, almost everyone knew that Marcus never appeared on any programs. And he never even accepted interviews. I sat at my desk, stunned. My show had been struggling with low ratings and poor performance, and almost got cancelled. At that time, Marcus had just begun to make a name for himself. Because of his handsome looks and charm, he was extremely popular. The leaders at the station tried multiple times to get him on a show or have him agree to an interview, but he refused each time. I had considered it too. I even asked him for just one interview, one that wouldn't require him to show his face. We wouldn't reveal our relationship. But Marcus turned me down as well. Now, though, he was about to appear on Tiffany's show. And he hadn't placed any harsh conditions on it at all. The questions the station prepared were quite broad, even covering the audience's favorite topic, romantic relationships. But he knew very well that Tiffany and I had a poor relationship. Since we started our internships after graduation, she had always wanted to step on me and push me down. Marcus must be doing this on purpose. I just couldn't understand why. He had moved on, found someone new. I broke up with him and moved out to make room for the new person. Shouldn't he be grateful to me? I couldn't figure it out, so I decided not to dwell on it anymore. Anyway, this was Tiffany's skill and luck. At this point, I had no other choice. I had to focus on doing my job well. But in the afternoon, I received another rejection from the agent of the newly crowned Best Actress. I wasn't surprised. After all, this show had never really gained much attention. Most of the guests they managed to invite were relatively unknown. Setla, you need to think of something quickly. This episode with Tiffany is definitely going to be a hit. Once it blows up, they'll cancel our segment without a doubt. I know. I'll think of something. If we could get Robin on the show, that'd be great. Of course, I'm probably just dreaming. My partner sighed, shaking their head. She's really lucky. Actually, the station was originally planning to cancel her segment. But who would have known she'd managed to get Marcus? Do you think something's going on between them? I thought for a moment. I heard Marcus has a girlfriend. Tiffany probably has nothing to do with him. But I was quickly slapped in the face. In the afternoon, Tiffany received 999 red roses. At 6 o'clock when work ended, Marcus's Bentley was parked right in front of the station's main entrance. Tiffany changed into a beautiful strapless dress, happily skipping into Marcus's car. By 9 p.m., I was scrolling through Tiffany's Instagram. The restaurant Marcus took her to was my favorite revolving restaurant. The photo showed 3 dishes, each one was something I loved. The gentleman holding his knife and fork had long fingers, and on his middle finger was a simple ring. I'd seen it for 6 years, so familiar that I couldn't mistake it. It was Marcus's ring. I smiled, put my phone down, and went to take a shower. When I came out of the bathroom, an old friend suddenly called me. I answered the call, and to my surprise, it was Marcus's voice. Setla. His tone was a little cold, with an obvious slur of drunkenness. You should move back, and I'll go on your show. I couldn't help but laugh. I decided the day I left, there's no going back. Setla, you should know. If I go on Tiffany's show, your segment will be cancelled, and you'll lose your job. So what? Marcus's voice suddenly softened. I fired that in turn. Also, nothing happened between me and her. You don't have any family, and your relatives are distant. You should know, only I can be your support. Marcus, I used to think that way. But now, I don't need it anymore. Setla, don't be so stubborn. Don't call me again. I hung up the phone. I also blocked the number. Those friends were just Marcus's friends. Since we broke up, there was no reason to keep in touch with them. My phone rang again. It was an unfamiliar number. Naturally, I assumed it was Marcus, so I hung up immediately and blocked it. A moment later, another unfamiliar number sent me a text. Try hanging up on me again. I was a bit stunned and replied, "Who is this?" The phone rang again. I hesitated for a second before picking up. It was Robin's voice. You're getting bolder. Sorry, I didn't know it was your number. Who did you think it was, Marcus? Yes. Then the call abruptly ended. I was confused, but I didn't call back. Just as I was about to fall asleep, the number called again. Open the door. My bedroom was small, and the bed was even smaller. The bathroom was tiny too. Robin came in after his shower, glanced at the bed, and frowned. I'll sleep on the couch, I said, getting up to leave. A 1.20 m bed was cramped even for one person. But Robin directly shut the bedroom door. I'm here to sleep with you, not on the bed. My face heated up. Keep your voice down, don't say that. The walls here don't have soundproofing. Robin threw his towel aside. He looked down at me with a raised brow. You should be the one keeping quiet. When he pushed me onto the bed, Robin added, Don't make noise while crying. Don't want the neighbors to hear and think I'm committing a crime. I couldn't hold it in anymore and glared at him. Can you stop bringing that up? Robin shrugged, unzipping my nightgown. He grinned. Isn't this all your fault? I couldn't argue, so I kept silent. The bed was too small, there was no room to move. The apartment wasn't soundproof, so I bit my lip and refused to make a sound. Robin wasn't satisfied. You'll move out tomorrow. Don't stay here anymore. Move where? I can't afford a better place. You know how high the rent is here. I'll buy you a place. Robin leaned down to kiss me. Move tomorrow. I was about to refuse when he added, if you move in, I'll go on your show. Really? Of course it's true, but there's one condition, I'll provide the interview questions. The news that Robin would be on my show spread like wildfire the next day at the station. What excited everyone even more was the bombshell news brought by Robin's secretary. Mr. Robin will announce something on the show. I can only reveal one thing, it's related to his love life. The station's leaders were ecstatic. My partner was also extremely excited. Someone like Robin, who'd never appeared on a live broadcast before, was bound to be a massive draw. This was 100 times more exciting than Marcus being on the show. After all, more than 10 years ago, Robin was still a street vendor. Now, he was a big shot, stirring up storms. Who wouldn't be curious about a man like that? Once the excitement faded, I brewed a cup of coffee. Sitting at my desk, I spaced out for a moment. Robin was going to announce some happy news on the show. If I guessed right, it probably had something to do with his marriage. Who would his fiancée be? There were countless socialites who liked him now. Several prominent families had expressed interest in marrying him. Robin didn't come from a wealthy background, though he had achieved success now. But in terms of family lineage, he couldn't compare to those top-tier families. He'd probably marry a young lady from a prestigious family. None of this had anything to do with me. But last night, he told me he'd buy me a house and have me move in. So, was he asking me to be his mistress? Although I was just an ordinary small-time host at the station, I would never agree to being someone's mistress. Even if it was Robin, and even if being with him would let me rise to the top. I didn't move into the house Robin gave me. The next day, I handed in my resignation letter to the company. Rejecting Robin naturally meant the show would fall apart. This time, I was once again Tiffany's defeated opponent. Instead of waiting for the show to be cancelled, it was better to resign on my own terms. But the look on the boss's face was a bit strange. Setla, you really can't quit now. Why not? Because Marcus is going to be on your show. He turned down Tiffany's show and is coming on yours with Robin, in the same episode. I was stunned. Was Marcus out of his mind, or had I heard wrong? Robin has already agreed. And Marcus is also going to announce some good news on the show. Setla. Once the show airs, you'll be an overnight sensation. Take your resignation letter back for now. The boss handed me the resignation letter. Hurry up and go prepare well. Filming for the pre-broadcast starts tomorrow. Make sure you're in your best shape. On my way back to the office, I ran into Tiffany. Her makeup was smeared, her eyes swollen and red, as if she had just been crying. When she saw me, her hatred was palpable. Setla, this is all your fault. It's all because of you. You ruined everything I had. Marcus was supposed to be your boyfriend, yet you let him toy with me like this. What were you thinking? How could a woman like you be so vicious? Tiffany seemed to go mad suddenly, grabbing a flower pot and throwing it at me. I was wearing high heels and almost tripped over the carpet while dodging. I could only helplessly cover my head with my arms. But the flower pot didn't hit me. Robin had arrived at some point. He blocked the flower pot with his body. It hit his forehead, and blood quickly started to flow. The studio was thrown into chaos. Tiffany was dragged away by security. Someone called for an ambulance. I sat dumbfounded on the floor, pressing my hands over the wound on Robin's forehead. Blood poured out between my fingers, warm and sticky. My senses started to return bit by bit. Robin. I called his name, dazed. Tears began to fall. Maybe my tears were falling too quickly. Robin forced a smile, curling his lips. Why are you crying again? Stop talking, you're bleeding, Robin. So, I'm bleeding. Why are you crying? I couldn't answer. I just kept staring at the blood on his face, tears streaming down. Robin was rushed into the ER for stitches. I sat absent-mindedly on a bench in the hallway. Until a nurse pushed him into a room and called me over. I saw the bandage on his forehead, wrapped tightly with gauze. Such a strong and sturdy man now lay there, looking a bit pale and weak. Does it hurt? I fought back my tears and asked softly. Do you want some water? Robin nodded, then shook his head. Just sit here. I obediently sat beside him. Kiss me. What? Come here, kiss me. But you're hurt. It's just my forehead. I'll go get you some water. I stood up to leave. But Robin suddenly groaned softly. I was startled and hurried over to check his forehead. Instead, Robin pulled me into his arms. He tilted his head and kissed me, then kissed deeper and deeper, without restraint. Until I was out of breath. Why do you taste so good? Robin's fingers caressed my swollen lips. Then, he lowered his voice and said something that made my face flush. I instantly turned red, pushing him away. Don't even think about it. Robin raised an eyebrow, playfully. Not even thinking about it? Not even thinking about it. I shot him a glare. You're such a rascal. A rogue. You're not wrong. 13 years ago, I was a rogue. I'm ignoring you. Robin suddenly smiled. I'm injured. Cook me some soup tonight. Tell your housekeeper to cook it. After I said that, I regretted it. No matter what, Robin got hurt for me. I only know how to make the simplest soup. Great. I like all kinds of soup. I'll make it for you tonight. Robin smiled even more deeply. All right, then make sure it's a good one. I had the feeling his words had a different meaning, but I brushed it off. That evening, when I made him the soup, he drank 2 big bowls and then complained of dizziness, asking me to help him back to his room. I knew right away that I hadn't wronged this rogue, who was always thinking about men and women. That night, it was also my first time taking the initiative. But I wasn't physically prepared, and my stamina was lacking. In just a few minutes, I gave up and refused to move. Robin wasn't upset, or maybe it was because of his injury. That night had a surprisingly gentle, almost tender atmosphere. But I really liked it. In the end, I fell asleep in his arms, completely at ease. I didn't even remember how I took a bath. The next morning, when I woke up, Robin was still asleep. I stood by the bed, watching him for a while. And then I thought about a lot of things. When I first found out he was going to get engaged, I had decided I wouldn't entangle myself with him anymore. But yesterday, he got hurt for me. Let's call it even for tonight. It seemed like from the beginning, Robin and I were either figuring out how to settle things or how to balance the scales. But no matter what, at least it felt like we were closing a chapter. I didn't wake him. I took a shower and left Robin's villa. Tiffany was taken away by the police. She might face detention. I submitted my resignation letter again. As I was leaving the company, I ran into Marcus. Setla. He called me. Standing under the bright summer sun. He was still handsome and charming. But no longer the man I had once loved. Are you really resigning? Yes. Didn't you really like this job? I did like this job. But now, I was exhausted. Without a powerful background and unwilling to accept the hidden rules. I was just left to sit on the sidelines. And if I had to rely on a man to get ahead, I'd forever be looked down on. Better not do it. I never agreed with you working anyway. It's hard work, and the pay is low. Marcus walked up to me. Why not just be a full-time wife? When I first started earning money, I told you. I don't want my wife to go through all this hardship. Now that you've resigned, come back with me. I'll support you from now on. He naturally took my hand. As if nothing had ever happened. As if he had never been involved with that in turn. Or slept with other women. As if we had never broken up. The sun was blinding. And I squinted my eyes, thinking how could Marcus look so unrecognizable? I pulled my hand away. Marcus, we've already broken up. Alright, I know I upset you last time. But it's been so long. You should have gotten over it by now. I'm not angry. I looked at him calmly. Marcus, I'm serious. The smile on his face slowly faded. Setla, you're 25 now. Don't be so willful, so childish. Without a job, without me, how will you survive in this city? Seeing that I didn't answer, his tone softened. Didn't you always want to marry me? To have a home? I've already prepared a house for us. It's the one we saw before, the mountaintop villa in the East District. You can decorate it however you like, okay? I wanted to refuse, but before I could speak, Robin's voice suddenly came from nearby. So, you won't move into the house I gave you because his house is bigger than mine? Robin was leaning against the car, with a cigarette dangling from the corner of his mouth, looking every bit the reckless, rogue type. The wound on his head seemed to be from a recent injury, the bandage had soaked through with a patch of bright red blood. I frowned immediately. You can't smoke right now. Robin raised his hand to take the cigarette out, but he didn't bother putting it out. By the way, he said casually, I bought the biggest mountaintop villa in that area. The one he bought isn't as big as mine. Setla, think carefully before you make your decision. Marcus's face turned ashen. Robin, what do you mean by that? Robin shrugged. Isn't it obvious? You're giving my woman a house. Your woman? Marcus clenched his teeth. When did she become your woman? Robin grinned. Wasn't it you who sent her to me in the first place? Marcus's expression shifted instantly. But Robin didn't waste any more time talking to him. I've made sure to store away all the drinks and food she's had. I've sent everything to the police. Mr. Marcus, if you're innocent, the law will clear your name. But if you're the one behind all this, the law won't spare you. And I won't spare you either. Robin stubbed out his cigarette just as the police arrived. Without saying another word, he walked past the dejected Marcus and came toward me. Setla. I've been the good guy for almost 5 years. Now, can I finally like you? I froze, my eyes widening. The hot wind swept past. Memories that were almost forgotten suddenly surged back to the surface. The girl who had just lost her parents in the shipwreck. The street-smart boy struggling to make a living. 2 people who shouldn't have crossed paths. Suddenly had their worlds collide because of that one event. The anxious girl gently wiped the blood off the boy's face after he got hurt in a fight. Then she put a cartoon band-aid on his forehead to cover the wound. The boy, dazed, grabbed her white skirt and wouldn't let go. Her soft and kind heart made her sit with him on the dirty ground, not leaving his side. When they parted ways, the boy asked the fragile, thin girl, "What's your name? Can I come find you later? Can I, like you?" The girl stuffed the band-aids and her spare change into his hands. She just smiled and said, "Then you have to be a good person. Boys who fight and cause trouble can't like me. I won't like them either. If you're a good person, can you like me?" Of course. Being liked is a happy thing. She waved at him. I'm leaving. I won't be coming back here. She was going to live with her relatives after losing her parents. She was leaving this place, going to a new school, starting a whole new life. Years later, when she had grown up, she had long forgotten that small event. She had met a good-looking guy she liked. And foolishly gave him her heart. But through all the years, there was one person who never forgot her, not for a single minute. No one knew the hardships he'd been through to get to where he was. To turn himself into a good person. But by then, the girl he had in his heart already had someone she liked. Even so, he never once thought about finding someone else, about liking someone else. Until that night. Until the accident happened. In truth, the crude methods used were something someone with his experience in the roughest of storms could easily see through. But at that moment, all he cared about was one thing. He couldn't let her get hurt. He couldn't let her be sad. So, he swallowed his pride and let it go. He didn't seek revenge on Marcus. Not until the person who had been following her told him that she was packing her things to leave Marcus's house. Not until he saw her with his own eyes, walking out with a suitcase. He couldn't wait another second. He couldn't bear to stay patient any longer. He brought her straight to his house. Is it you? The almost faded memories began to resurface, little by little. But the Robin standing before me now, with his neat hair and the tattooed arms, could never be the same boy from back then. Your tattoos. They're long gone. I didn't have money back then, so the scar stayed. Robin rolled up his sleeve, showing me his arm. There were still a few clear scars visible. Setla, you still haven't answered me. Robin's expression was deadly serious. Are you sure you're a good person now? What kind of good person acts like you? Robin furrowed his brow slightly. Setla. He took a step forward and leaned down to kiss me. You're the best when you're quiet, like this. It was broad daylight, and people were walking by. I tried to push him away, but he covered his head wound and groaned, Setla, my head hurts. I froze in place, too scared to move. Robin kissed me for a long while, content, before speaking again. Will you make me some soup tonight? You wish. Setla, why is your mind always in the gutter? I only asked you to make me soup. I didn't mean anything else. Robin said it with such a straight face. I couldn't help but wonder if maybe I really was the one with the dirty mind. Are you serious? Robin nodded seriously. I hesitantly got into his car. After drinking 2 large bowls of soup, he took advantage of his dizziness from the injury and tricked me into helping him upstairs. That helping him upstairs ended with him on the bed. When he pulled me into his lap, I stopped him. Robin, you said you were going to announce some good news. What was it? There were some things I had to ask clearly. After all, even though I was beginning to have feelings for him, and even though we had history from childhood, I didn't want to be the other woman, hidden away in the shadows. If he was really going to marry someone else, it would be better to end things now, before it hurt too much. Robin looked at me from the bed and frowned. Setla, I'm like this, and you still have the energy to ask about that? I looked down and swallowed hard. But I was someone with principles. Some questions had to be answered. Are you going to tell me or not? If not, I'm leaving right now. Robin grabbed my waist and pushed me down on the bed. Who else would I marry? I'm 28. Of course, I want to get married. Who would you marry? The woman who, after many years, was the first to tear my pants off. Robin. I was so mad that I lunged at him to hit him, but Robin just watched me and didn't move. He let me hit him a few times. Are you done? He slowly sat up and gave me a light slap on the backside. Now it's my turn. Robin. I glared at him, furious. But Robin lowered his head and kissed me gently. Setla, I've liked you for so many years. The end.